All right. So the first we're going to do is going to set up an environment. I'll do it here on my machine, and my expectation is that you would do the same on your own. Push it to a repository. That's what you're going to be submitting as your first assignment, and then pushing it to a remote Heroku or AWS server, right? So that the TAs can go and look at this remotely. Okay. These instructions were done when, for Java, the JDK 8. If you have something newer, JDK 9 or newer, then it might be slightly different. Okay, but nevertheless, we'll need the latest version of the JDK. 8 is fine. We're going to be using Maven. Everybody familiar with Maven? Anybody not familiar with Maven? Okay. Okay, so you'll need to install Maven. Maven is a tool, is a build tool that allows you to easily compile, package, and deploy applications. If you've built Java applications, you must have found yourself finding all these jar files and put them in the class path and making sure they're available to compile and run your application. Well, Maven automates that, right? So that you can give it your dependencies and say, hey, I need a plugin that connects to MySQL, right? And it goes off and downloads the right jar file, puts it in the right place, right? So it's always available, so that you don't have to do that manually. So Maven, please download and install Maven. We'll be using that quite a bit throughout the semester. Also, Heroku, please create an account on Heroku. If you prefer AWS, then that's fine. But these instructions are for Heroku. Create an account. You'll also need to download the developer tools, the command line interface for Heroku. It'll install locally on your machine so you can run Heroku commands. So for instance, one of the cool things that I'll allow you to do is debug the remote server, right? If your server's not running and it's giving you grief, you can see what the command line, right? What the logs are saying, right? That it's missing some class, it's not finding something. So it's a good debugging tool. It also very easily allows you to create and deploy things, package applications, and deploy them automatically on the remote server, right? So install the Heroku CLI. It'll once you create the account remotely, locally with the Heroku CLI, you can log in with the same credentials you created on your Heroku account. Right? So it'll know that it's still you, right? So it'll know where to deploy. You'll need to log in using Heroku login. All right, so Spring Boot. Spring Boot. Spring is a very popular Java framework that implements a lot of the very common design patterns that are very popular in Java, and provides a framework that already implements that, so you don't have to start from scratch. Okay, so that using just annotations, right, you can bring about lots and lots of really cool features and behaviors that would take you, quite a bit to implement yourself. Okay, so again, we are humans. We love to create abstractions on top of abstractions on top of abstractions, and we create, become more and more powerful. So the easiest way to install Spring is to make sure you have Brew. Well, if you're on a Mac, you'll install Brew, and you can just install Spring Boot, or you can go to this URL and follow the instructions to install manually. Okay. If you don't have Brew, you can use this script to go and fetch Brew. Once you have Spring running on your the Spring CLI installed, you can create your own application, Spring, at the command line init. Say that you want it to be a web application, and then the name of your application. So just to demo this. So where are we? So Janunzi, cd webdev, fall. So we can create a Spring application just by typing Spring, and then the dependencies. Oh, init, sorry. So web, and then give it a name. So this will be maybe whiteboard, and this will be lecture. And I'll give it. So this will be the server Java. So this creates it, and then we can go in there. And notice that there's a POM file in there, pom.xml, that describes the application. This is a Maven project. It creates a Maven project for you. And POM describes any dependencies that this project might have. Right? For instance, it describes that this is a Spring application, meaning download all the jar files for Spring the Spring framework. Any other dependencies that you might have, for instance, this we declare this to be a web project, right? As a dependency, so that's stored in there, saying that this is a Tomcat application, that it allows you to run as an HTTP server, and things like that are already declared here in the POM file. So this gives you a template for us to get started. So for instance, we can open this up in WebStorm. So webdev 2018 fall. There it is. Here's the source code, which is the only thing that it has is this entry, this demo application entry point. It's a main class, right? This is the entry point of the application. If you just do a Java and you run that main, it starts up the application. So Spring Boot, what's point was to create a very, very simple way to get started implementing large enterprise applications. Yes. So for instance, we can very quickly create a web content here. If we create a web app, it's a standard name in main. And so this would be the root of a web application. Just like public might be in Tomcat or in some other servers, a web app declares the root of the application. We can just create here an entry point index.html, and in here perhaps we can do h1 welcome to webdev fall 2018. And from the command line, we can compile this using Maven. We're in the right place? Yeah, so Maven clean install. So this reads the POM file, the pom.xml, sees that you need Tomcat, you need a whole bunch of other things, the Spring Boot, downloads all the jar files, puts them in the right place, so you don't have to do that manually, and it generates a target directory. In the target directory is a compiled and packaged version of the application, and we can run it using Java jar from the target. I guess it would be whiteboard. There it is, jar. There it is. We can run it from the command line. This starts up the Spring Boot server. Starts up Tomcat, listening at the default. Port of 8080, I believe. All right, so I think it's running. And we can now just hit it from a browser. We can say localhost 8080 and our index page. And as you have your welcome to WebDev Fall 2018. So this gets us started, right? So here's where that's all you really need to do to get started locally as a development environment, okay? Later on, we'll add databases, we'll add services, well, a whole bunch of other things. But for now, right, as much for whatever you need for the assignments, this is all you need locally, okay, to get started. All the HTML, all the CSS, all your content, all your work for this assignment will live under web app. Okay, under web app, you'll create your login, registration, profile, course editor. Everything will live under here. Make sense? All right. Okay, so let's go back. So you'll create your Spring application. You'll add MySQL, right, because we'll have a database up and running a little later. So for the first half of the semester, we'll be using MySQL. So you'll need Workbench, MySQL Workbench, so that you can, or if you prefer another MySQL client, that's fine. SQL Pro is pretty good on Mac. Spring Tools. So this is an alternative IDE. If you prefer Eclipse, then STS is the official IDE for Spring Boot. Right? If you prefer Eclipse, you can download and install it locally for your particular framework or a Node.js. Later on, we're going to be using Node.js. So if you could install it easily, you can do it from brew install Node, or you can just go to the nodejs.org and download it from there and install it from there. Once you've have Node.js, you should also download and install MongoDB. Again, you can do it from brew install MongoDB, or you can go to mongodb.org and download it from there. And they have installations for all the major operating systems. You can put the executables on the program files, or in Mac it would go under user local, and you would put the executables there. The MongoDB will expect that there is a data DB directory off of your root, okay, either on Mac or PC, Windows. You might need root access to create that directory off of the root directory, right? GitHub, make sure that you have GitHub installed. If you have a Mac, typically you already have GitHub installed on your Mac. If not, you'll need to download and install a GitHub client repository. Releases, as I mentioned earlier, as you work through your assignments, you'll be creating releases and submitting the URL to that release as part of your deliverable. Okay? All right.